Hello and welcome to Original Soundchat, where video game music is a work of art. On each episode, it's our goal to help you learn about two soundtracks from the world of games, as well as the people, stories, and critical tracks behind them. My name is DeVader, and we're brought to you by Anonymous Dinosaur and Rhymes with Asia. It's time to appreciate great OSTs and the games that they come from without getting bogged down in music theory. This week's game on this solo episode is 2002's Pac-Man World 2, the 3D platforming adventure that pits the famous yellow round man against an evil ghost who was sealed away long ago. That's right, it is a solo episode, and it's going to be a weird one because I am sick. But Peter has visitors over the weekend, and then he has stuff to do next week, and if this was not a solo episode, it wouldn't come out on Tuesday, but it's possible it just would miss a week. And that would be our first week missed in 174 weeks. And that is not happening. So here we are. We're going to talk about Pac-Man. But first, what have I been playing? I finished a Shijima story. It's fine. That's really all I've been playing. I haven't touched anything else. 13 Sentinels, I now have 3 characters at 100%. So hopefully by the next time we talk, I will have finished 13 Sentinels? Who knows? I have a couple other games that I gotta finish for reviews, so we'll see where that goes. Meanwhile, we have started a little, tradition now of doing VGM Hurdle on the show. So if you don't know what that is, it's basically Hurdle, but with video game music. So basically, it'll play a 1-second sample at the beginning of a song. We will see if we can identify it there. If we can't, we'll hit skip. It'll keep going, and it'll increase the amount of time until it just gets to the point where we have to give up. So let's load this up and try it. Alright. What do we got? I don't think I can get it from 1 second, which is actually the first one since we started doing this on the show that I haven't been able to. Okay, this sounds familiar. I have a guess, but I should know what this is. I know what it is. I want to say Castle Lockstone from Death's Door? It is not Castle Lockstone from Death's Door. It is from Death's Door, though. I know that for a fact. It is definitely from Death's Door. Is it Death's Door? There we go, yes. So it is the song Death's Door from Death's Door. I should have gotten that earlier. It took 4 seconds for me to get that, and one wrong guess, because I guessed Castle Lockstone, and it was not Castle Lockstone. But hey, I got it. Everything is good. Hope you got it too. Maybe. I don't know. We talked about this game for the best of 2021, but this was not one of the songs that was included on the list, so, Alright. Like I said, I am sick, so we are gonna jump right into it, because I need to make sure I can make it through the whole thing. That would be really cool. So let's do this, shall we? Let's talk about Pac-Man World 2. So this game was released on February 24th, 2002 for PC, PS2, GameCube, and Xbox. So this is one of those games that was just released for everything. There's also a GBA version that was released in 2005, which is a real long time later, but it is essentially a different game, as was the style at the time. That happened all the time back in this time period. It was developed by Namco Home Tech and published by Namco. It is a 3D platformer and a sequel to 1999's Pac-Man World. The player controls Pac-Man through linear platforming levels, making use of his various skills and abilities. And these abilities include classic-inspired ones like the ability to float along and eat a line of dots, as well as different, less traditional abilities such as the butt bounce, which is a ground pound that can gain height. Think the bounce bracelet from Sonic Adventure 2. Something very similar to that. And the rev roll, which is a charged roll that is basically a spin dash now that I think about it. The thing about the gameplay in Pac-Man World 2 is it's kind of like a weird mishmash of every 3D platformer that came before it, including Sonic somehow. I can basically compare everything to something else, you know. Levels also have dots and fruits that can be collected to increase the player's score, but these are entirely optional, as are 16 Galaxian ships that can be found that allow Pac-Man to take part in a bonus maze stage. The story of Pac-Man World 2 is simple. Quote from Wikipedia, "Hundreds of years ago, the evil ghost king Spooky terrorized Pac-Land and the Pac people. To stop him, the great wizard Pac created a powerful potion to transform 5 ordinary fruit into magical golden fruit. The knight Sir Pac-a-Lot defeated Spooky in battle and used the golden fruit to seal him under a tree in the center of Pac Village. And when Inky, Blinky, Pinky, and Clyde show up in Pac Village and take the golden fruits off the tree as a fun, silly prank, they accidentally release Spooky, who offers to help them rid the world of the Pac people if they serve him, which is an offer that they agree to. So from there, Pac-Man is sent forth to reach Spooky's haunted island and defeat him or seal him away once more. So this is where I will talk about what are my experiences with Pac-Man World 2. Well, I don't feel like I need to talk very much about that because I can point you to an episode of my other podcast, Smasherpieces, that was entirely about this game. But the quick summary is we played it for Smasherpieces. It was Pac-Man's game. Neither of us had ever played or seen it, basically. So it was a completely new experience for both me and Matt. But we had our friend Luke, aka Cyberlink420, on the show to talk about it with us, and he'd played it before. And I think it's actually like one of the more fun episodes we've done. So if you're interested in hearing detailed discussion about the game itself, I would absolutely 100% recommend checking out that episode. It's super fun, really funny. We talk about Pac-Man's nightmare dog and, you know, a bunch of other stuff. Now, meanwhile, I couldn't find any development information about this game, and that's not really surprising to me. This is one of those games that like 20 people played when they were kids and nobody else remembers it. And there's not really anybody asking about it nowadays. So development information on it is just a little bit hard to come by, I guess. And by hard to come by, I mean impossible. I didn't find anything. I did find, though, and this is something I actually already knew because of the Smasherpieces episode, the Japanese release actually toned down the difficulty, making some levels shorter and giving the bosses less health in general, which would have helped during one specific boss that I hate and everybody should hate. Don't worry, that's an old wound. We don't need to open it now. It's fine. It reviewed average to low when it released. The PS2 and GameCube versions are in the mid-70s. The GameCube version is actually the highest reviewed of all of them. The Xbox sits at 66, and the PC sits at a cratered 54. Now, most of the criticisms seem to be aimed at the game's camera, which, again, we mention this every time we talk about a 3D game from this era. Cameras just sucked. That's just how it was back then. Cameras were bad. But there was a lot of praise for the music in multiple reviews. I also saw one review talk about plays too similarly to Mario, and I still don't get that. Because one, no it doesn't. No it doesn't. And two, who cares? Oh, so it plays like one of the most famous platformers in the world. That means it's good? And it is good. It was very surprisingly good when we played it for Smash Pieces. We had a very interesting discussion about how going in with no expectations at all led us to think that, yeah, no, that game's pretty damn good. Maybe not like the greatest, but it is fun. It's enjoyable. It's a good time, except for one boss. The game sold very well in North America and Europe, but sold so badly in Japan that from that point on, games developed by Namco Home Tech, which was specifically the US branch of Namco, weren't released in Japan ever again. Wow. Imagine your game selling so badly in the country that your bosses live in that your bosses decide your games don't come out in their country anymore. That seems harsh, but it must have sold really bad there. Who knows? Another sequel, Pac-Man World 3, released in 2005 for the PlayStation 2, GameCube, Xbox, PC, PSP, and DS. Once again, though, the DS version was completely different because, again, that was the style at the time. Look, the GBA and the DS were both very, very successful, and shovelware abound. Maybe not shovelware. This probably wasn't shovelware, but like, your game had to come out on that. It was the law at that point. That was just leaving money on the table if they didn't. So, the composer for this game, his name is David Logan. And in terms of background info, I really couldn't find anything about like his career. I did find some of his social media stuff. You can follow him on Twitter at Orb Soundworks. That's ORBSOUNDWERX. But he also does occasional Twitch streams at twitch.tv/David Logan Music. I believe he shows some of his composition and mixing process on those streams. It sounds really cool, and I might need to pop in on at least one of those at some point. In terms of discography, I found one single website I'd never been to that listed some of the games he'd worked on, being Asteroids 1998, Pitfall 3D Beyond the Jungle, Twisted Metal 4, Draconis Cult of the Wyrm, Pac-Man World 2, obviously, Legion, The Legend of Excalibur, Heroes Over Europe, and Jeopardy 2017. He also, based on his Twitter account, the Orb Soundworks Twitter account, he's also done quite a few smaller indie titles recently, but it was very hard to figure out if he was just retweeting those games or had actually worked on those games. I don't know. I choose to believe he probably did, though. Alright. It's time to jump into the 5 critical tracks, and I know it's been quick. I honestly expected to find a little bit more on some of the development, but apparently, no. Anyways, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about the 5 critical tracks. The first one, critical track number 1, is Bedoing Woods. So, the cool thing about how music works in Pac-Man World 2 is every world has 3 levels to it, and all 3 of those worlds use the same basic melody, but arranged in a different way for each stage. Bedoing Woods, I believe, is level 1-2, and probably one of my favorite songs on the soundtrack. It's not my favorite. My favorite comes later. It's one of the boss themes. But it's just really, really fun, and you can feel the bouncing that you're supposed to do. That's why it's called Bedoing, by the way. You're bouncing. You're doing the bounce on like trampolines and stuff. It's a really fun level, actually. And you can kind of feel that sort of bounciness to the piece itself, and it's really nice. It's cool. It's got this marimba stuff going in the background. It's a really catchy tune. It's just good. I really don't know what else to say about it except it's bouncy and fun. For critical track number 2, it is Blade Mountain. Be honest, would you have ever guessed this was from a Pac-Man game? I wouldn't have if I hadn't played this game. You are literally on this level, ice skating down a mountain, I think outrunning an avalanche. If I remember correctly, this is the level that apparently Matt died on several times, and then when I got it on my first try, during the stream, Matt typed in chat, "No, you got through that too fast, go back and do it again." And then I didn't do that because Matt's not my dad. But this song is just, it's got this really, really epic feeling to it. You're skating down a mountain. It better feel really cool. But like, this is from a Pac-Man game. Sure. Alright. But it's not my favorite song from the Ice World, because my favorite is actually the Ice World's boss, and it's also my favorite song in the game. Critical track number 3 is Pinky's Revenge. So, at the very beginning of the song, it sounds like your usual sort of, oh, this is an ice level, an ice boss fight. It feels like a Winter Wonderland sort of thing. And then it just loses its damn mind and just goes unhinged and crazy and just out of tune. And the reason for this is that in Pac-Man World 2, and I guess in Pac-Man canon, as I've learned, Pinky actually is in love with Pac-Man. And she is what we in the business refer to as a yandere, which means that she's insane. And if she can't have Pac-Man, that means nobody can. And he's going to die now. So that's why it's got these weird psycho themes, tones to it. It's really, really weird. I absolutely adore this song because it's really impressive how unhinged it sounds for a lot of the song. It's great. I love it. But then we gotta move on to critical track number 4. This is Volcanic Panic. Honestly, I think the Volcano World probably has the best overall sort of theme to it, and this sort of heavy arrangement. It's not the heaviest arrangement. I think there's one that has like way heavier drums, but for some reason I really, really dig this one the most. It sounds like a lava level. This is what a lava level sounds like. It's not doing anything particularly new or anything, but it really doesn't have to. It sounds great. And like that chanting sample in there really adds a lot to it. And I don't know. It's just a fun, I don't know if intense is the word I'd use, but it's the closest I can think of at the very least. It's good. And critical track number 5, this is another one of my favorites. This is Haunted Boardwalk. Now, this unfortunately does not lend itself to my theory of 3/4 time being the spookiest, because I don't think the song's a 3/4 time at all. But, it's also one of my least favorite levels in the entire game, because Pac-Man is on roller skates and it's basically an auto-scroller, and it sucks. It's a bad level. There's like precision platforming involved. It just sort of sucks a lot. But this song is super, super good, so at least there's that. There's that violin MIDI at some point that just kills it. You have like the sort of, what would that be? Just like bells, chimes? Those things. You know what I'm talking about. The creepy sounding bell sounds. Yeah, you've got it. It fits perfectly for a haunted boardwalk, a haunted anything. There's ghosts about. And it's creepy. Yeah. Why am I allowed to do this show by myself? For tracks on the cutting room floor, I have 2. The first one is actually here out of spite, because you have to know about it. I've chosen this fate, and now you have too. This is Clyde in the Caldera. Clyde is the boss of the lava level. He is one of the worst bosses I have ever fought in a 3D platformer in my entire life. He is so absurdly hard in such absurdly stupid ways. If I remember correctly, he took like 45 minutes for him to beat during my stream. There's one point his last phase, like, moves the hitbox and makes it smaller, where you can actually hurt him. It's so stupid. It's such a bad boss fight. But this song's pretty cool. I like the heavy drums. I like the, deep horns that are just sort of making it sound super, super, super intimidating. I just wish that this song went behind a boss that was likable in any way. By the way, when I said that they made some bosses easier in the Japanese version, Clyde was 100% one of them. Anyways, let's move on to the second track on the cutting room floor. I was gonna say this one's here for spite as well, but honestly, I think this is the only one from this world that is not out of spite, that doesn't suck, because the other 2 levels in this water area suck. This is Shark Attack. What it is about this one that just feels neat. It has sort of the same feeling that I get from the ice level that we talked about, where if you told me this was from a Pac-Man game, I don't know if I would have believed you had I not played the game myself. But it's just got this really cool forward-moving theme to it. And I don't know if I'd particularly call it fitting of a water level, but that's where it plays, so whatever. So what will I never forget about Pac-Man World 2? I will never forget how pleasant of a surprise it was when the game was actually pretty good. Again, if you want to know more about Pac-Man World 2 and how I felt about it and how Matt and Luke felt about it, you should go check out that Pac-Man World 2 episode of Smasherpieces, because again, it might be one of my favorite episodes we have ever recorded, even still, and I think you would have a great time with it, so absolutely you should go check it out. Past that, I don't know. It's a fun platformer. I don't know if I'll play it again at any point in my life, but I'm glad I played it once. And that will do it for today's episode of Original Soundchat. I'm really sorry that this is a very, very short episode, but again, that's a mix of I am sick and there just wasn't a lot of information to be found about this game, which is a shame, but I can't really say I'm super surprised, I guess. I don't know. Who knows? You can follow me on Twitter at StringPixel. You can follow Peter at PeteSpeakEasy. You can follow the show itself at Soundchat OST. That's where you can go and give us listener suggestions for games that we should cover or tell us how we're doing in general. This was actually another listener suggestion from Razzle Dazzle, who is also one of the reasons why it ended up on the Smasherpieces list. And once we finished it for Smasherpieces, it was officially put in as a listener suggestion. So thank you for that, and I hope I at least did a serviceable job. I hope. I don't know. You can find the video version of this podcast at the YouTube channel Rhymes with Asia, and if you want the audio version and want a direct download from it, you can find that at anondino.squarespace.com. Of course, you can also find it on all of the podcatcher platforms. That includes Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. And speaking of Spotify, not only do we have the whole show feed on there, we also have a playlist of songs that are on Spotify that go on there when we talk about the game. Pac-Man World 2 is not on Spotify. I don't think this game ever got an official soundtrack release. So, yeah, there's that. But there's still a whole bunch of songs on there. I think last we checked, there's like 3 days worth of music on that playlist. So, yeah, you should go listen. Anyways, next week, when we are no longer a solo episode, hopefully, fingers crossed, I will be talking about Hidenori Maezawa, and Peter's going to be taking on another heavy hitter, though not necessarily a heavy hitter for the video game industry, because he'll be talking about Danny Elfman. Now, weird thing, I didn't expect to find a remix from this soundtrack to use as the ending song of our show, because we usually like to grab a fan remix, a fan cover of one of the songs off the soundtrack we're talking about, just to sort of highlight it and end the show off with. And I found a remix by YouTuber Checkarn, that's Checkarn, who did a remix of 2 songs put together, being Scuba Dooba and, of course, my personal favorite, Pinky's Revenge. So, please enjoy that. Thank you for tuning in this week to Original Soundchat. Sorry again that it is such a short episode, but I hope you enjoyed nonetheless. We'll see you next time. Take care.